In this lesson, we'll clean up our rig. So this is where we check to make sure that when we start to move our controls, at first they work, and then secondly, we want to make sure that when we use transform to 0, our character will be brought back to the skin pose. You want to check for things like that. You'll also want to check your custom parameters so we can start to use our foot roll. That looks nice. And then we can add our bend control on top of that. Very cool. So we can go ahead and start to zero these out. And that's basically what we do by this step. Let's go ahead and take a look at the fingers on the right hand. As we start to use the bend channel, you can see that we have a straying point. All right, well, let's go back to our layer manager. We'll unfreeze our model layer. Let's grab our model and enter into edit envelope mode. Now we'll select the envelope object that we'd like to paint to. That's going to be the right wrist. We'll go to our paint weight tool. Let's go to the options. I might set the max size to about 2 to increase the brush a bit more. Everything else looks great. We can now choose paint weights, grab our brush, and fix that point. Great, so that was easy enough. Let's go ahead and grab our control object and right-click on our bend channel to zero the hand back out. Beautiful stuff. So what we want to do next is to go through and hide each layer except for our default layer, just to make sure everything is stored in its own layer. So you can see we have some helpers here that need to be stored in our hidden layer. So with that selected, we'll go ahead and add them. All right, very nice. So now we can show the model. We're going to leave it unfrozen for now. And we'll also show our controls. So that's everything that the animators would need to see. Very cool. So we have sure worked on some very fun things throughout this course. We've rigged some really cool controls. We've added some nice custom parameters to control things like our fingers, our foot roll. We've also made sure that we have enough control for the character's torso, things like that. So feel free to go through any lessons that you might be unclear about just to make sure that you have this process down, because remember, by the next level, things are going to get a little bit more challenging in that we're going to learn some newer ideas. It'll most certainly be fun, but you need a foundation first before you move to that next level. All right. So what I'd like to do to finish up here is to go ahead and add a Turbo Smooth node to the character. By doing so, we then have a way to kind of work with a final mesh. So if we decide to animate on this rig, which we most certainly can, we can then create a higher res mesh that we can use to render with. All right, so let's go ahead and grab our model, head over to our modify list, and let's go ahead and press the T key until we find Turbo Smooth. All right, so now here's something really neat. We can create a custom parameter to control the iterations of our Turbo Smooth modifier. Let's go ahead and grab our global control, and we'll create an attribute holder. Let's right-click and rename it to Extra Controls. Now, pressing Alt-1 will create a custom parameter. We're going to make this an integer type. That way, we're just working with whole numbers. And we'll name this Smoothing. Great. Our from range will be set to 0. Our to range will set to 2. 2 should be more than enough. All right, so everything else looks great. We'll now go ahead and choose Add. So with our global control still selected, let's right-click and choose Wire Parameters, and that's going to be Modified Object, Extra Controls, Custom Attributes, Smoothing. And let's tie that to our meshes, Modified Object, Turbo Smooth Iterations. So we'll do a direct connect using the lower arrow. Watch this, the character has been brought back to a low-res state. If we were to go to Smoothing and set this to 2, now that's very high-res. How about 1? Let's go ahead and see how that looks. That looks really nice. We can start to take a look at our deformations now. Notice how much better the deformations look. Very fun. So I'll go to now right-click to zero those back out. Very nice. So we've managed to create a very nice control system for animation. So what we can do then is move to the next lesson where we'll take a look at our assignment for level 1.